Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07, Wednesday morning, the 4th day of March. Good morning, and thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company on WMAL. It's Larry here with Cassie Smedile. All morning long, our best to Julie Gunlock, recovering still on this a day she should be here, co-hosting. Cassie, thank you for picking up the slack for our beloved Julie.
Good morning, Larry. How's
Good
that?
Morning, Cassie.
Let me take a sip of coffee here.
If
but
it makes
yes,
you feel better, Julie
the
used to do
best.
that all the time. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Great to have you here. And it's a post-primary day, so we've got some results to give you. Also at 6:35, Cal Thomas will be our guest. 7:05, Jonathan Fahey, former federal prosecutor and acting director of ICE. What a day yesterday on Capitol Hill with Kristi Noem. 7:35, Rob Whitman, Republican congressman from Virginia. Talk about Abigail Spanberger and the job she's doing, and we'll get into redistricting. I think Rob Whitman will be a former congressman if Virginia Democrats have their way. 8:05 brings us Maryland Senator Justin Reedy, joining us to talk about all the things in Maryland. Larry O'Connor here. Sorry, I had to pause there because we've got so much going on our plate as we get all of our data and all our information here. To begin our program, yes, as you're waking up, you're probably wondering, hey, what happened in those Texas primaries yesterday? Well, let's let Jasmine Crockett start things off here to let you know exactly what happened on the Democrat side of the equation as they chose their nominee for the United States Senate. Take it away, Jazzy.
We encourage each and every one of you to remain resilient. We cannot allow this type of behavior to be rewarded, because so long as they know that they can win, even if it means cheating, then they will continue to do it. So I am asking you, I am begging you to make sure that you go ahead and figure out where it is that you are supposed to vote.
They cheated. They got away with cheating, Jasmine Crockett says. Now, the unobservant watcher of this may think that she's, of course, lashing out at Republicans, but no, her opponent was a Democrat, of course. I think
Right.
that they would be James Talarico, who's been declared the winner in that primary race. You'll remember that Stephen Colbert and big media put their thumb on the scale there and gave him a huge boost 2 weeks ago with a huge fundraising effort and international attention by claiming that Trump had kept him from appearing on Stephen Colbert because of equal time. But, of course, the equal time commitment that CBS was forcing on Stephen Colbert was not for Republicans' sake. It was to have equal time for Jasmine Crockett. Stephen Colbert would rather not have Jasmine Crockett on the show, so instead made a big deal about not having James Talarico. It seems like it worked. They've got their man. They've got their guy. He's mild-mannered. We'll get into what James Talarico is, who he is and what he stands for in a moment. But are they going to lash out, Cassie? Will people realize just how blatantly racist this was? Because all you would hear from Democrats in this primary was Jasmine Crockett can't win. Tell us why. Why can't she win? Say it out loud.
Mm-hmm. You know, the Democrat Party just wasn't ready to elect a black female. Michelle Obama's right. It's just the Democrat Party who's not ready, right?
Yeah.
But I hope they open an investigation into Stephen Colbert. They should. I can't wait for Jasmine Crockett to become a Republican after all of this. But, you know, Larry, I'm going to miss her. I'm really going to miss her.
We should take a pause because she's not running for re-election in her House district, mostly because it got, gerrymandered away. So her decision was to sort of upgrade and say, yeah, I could be a senator. And honestly, I don't want her anywhere near the United States Senate, but I'm kind of going to miss her too. She is incredibly entertaining. I guess she'll go. Do you think MSNBC offers her a show, or does she go just straight to Substack? Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 and co-host with Joy Reid.
Maybe she'll get a stint on The View for half a minute or something. Or what if she and Marjorie Taylor Greene go into business together?
Oh, Lordy. At one point, she went out and spoke to her people waiting at the rally to let. This is the typical thing where people never give a concession speech at the rally the evening of the race. They just go out there and say, well, we're not sure. We're not going to get any results. She's down by 10 points, right? So, but what does she do? She tries to make it sound like Republicans are the problem. I kid you not. You cannot make it up. Hold on. I just want to make sure that I've got my audio set up for you to hear this, because I was absolutely stunned by this.
So that's my news, is that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion, based upon what specifically is taking place in Dallas County. Unfortunately, this is what Republicans like to do.
Wait. The Democrats are doing this to you, ma'am. This is not, but what are Republicans doing? I guess she's making the case that in some districts there's long lines and they had to keep the polls open, and it's because there weren't enough people working at the polls, and it's Republicans who are responsible for that. Her problem is on the blue side of the aisle here, if she's looking to lash out.
Absolutely. Well, it's hard to break the talking points. Yeah. That's what's on. That's what comes through the email. She's probably getting her own fundraising emails that say that right now. They're trying to keep this going. It has to be the Republicans' fault. But again, I'm going to miss her.
Yeah, she's was always very entertaining, and she raised a hell of a lot of money. She was like a top 10 fundraiser for Democrats in the House. They loved her to go out there and drive Republicans crazy and stick a finger in the eye of Trump and MAGA and all of that stuff and scream racism. And they loved using her to raise money for their candidates all across the country. But when the chips were down and she needed their support, they went to the vanilla boy, the guy who doesn't do anything for the party. He just kind of came out of nowhere. He's only been in office since 2018. He was a middle school teacher, James Talarico. But they love him because, honestly, they think so little of voters. James Talarico has a gift of trying to camouflage his radical left-wing political positions in the Bible. And I don't know if he's done this his entire career, but I can tell you during the Senate campaign, as he's going around Texas, it is one of the most cynical things ever. Democrats never talk about their faith, never talk about religion, except when they can try to push radical, woke, left-wing political ideas that are obviously antithetical, and I do use that word advisedly, antithetical to the Christian or Judeo-Christian faiths. This guy says, oh, no, please, having an abortion is actually blessed by God. If you're not having enough abortions, that's really the sin. I mean, I'm only barely overstating the way he tries to talk about these things.
No, and I know you've got this teed up, that literally saying that Mary gave consent when the angel came down and asked Mary if this is something she wants to do. To me, that is an affirmation that creation has to be done with consent. Yeah. That's heresy. But I'm with you, Larry. This guy, and I don't mean to be hyperbolic, like he terrifies me, but it is the playbook that they are deliberately using to deceive voters. Yeah. They said, let's go in and find some clean-cut guy and get him to, quote-unquote, preach the gospel, and that's how we're going to turn Texas blue.
Yeah.
It's
so
wild.
It's cynical. It's a little terrifying. All right, coming up in a moment, James Talarico, the new Democrat nominee for Senate, in his own words, they're going to Beto this guy. They're going to try to make him the new hot thing, and they're going to Spanberger this guy is what they're going to do. That's the better word for it. We're also going to tell you what's going on in the Republican primary. It will be a runoff. Who's it between, and how close was yesterday's primary between the two top Republican vote getters? Wait, a lot closer than people thought going in. We'll tell you where that stands and speculate as to whether Donald Trump makes an endorsement in that very, very important race. We'll get to that coming up in a moment. First, though, it's 5:15.
Our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front.
That's James Talarico talking about the southern border of Texas. How do you think Texans will enjoy that language? Our southern border should be like a front porch.
Front porch. And they are on the front lines. Please put that on every ad, across every TV, every streaming device. Put that on billboards. That's the message that Republicans need to be blasting from now until November.
This allusion we made to James Talarico framing his radical left-wing ideology within biblical terms. It is a dangerous thing, and sadly there are way too many catechized Christians who will fall for this garbage. And it's funny, I'm always told as a Republican, as a conservative Christian, that we are not supposed to talk about our faith publicly, that we are supposed to have a firewall between our faith and state if you're a politician or you're running for office. But Talarico, he loves to wrap himself up in the gospel, but when he wraps himself up, something gets lost in translation. Here he is on the Joe Rogan podcast earlier in the year, cut 4.
But I say all this in terms of, in context of abortion, because before God comes over Mary and we have the incarnation, God asks for Mary's consent, which is remarkable. I mean, go back and read this in Luke. I mean, the angel comes down and asks Mary if this is something she wants to do. And she says, if it is God's will, let it be done. Let it be. Let it happen. So to me, that is an affirmation in one of our most central stories that creation has to be done with consent. You cannot force someone to create. Creation is one of the most sacred acts that we engage in as human beings. But that has to be done with consent. It has to be done with freedom. And to me, that is absolutely consistent with the ministry and life and death of Jesus. And so that's how I come down on that side of the issue.
Wow. First of all, before we go any further, let's all pray for James Talarico's soul, not just for his own beliefs, but also for the fact that he is now putting himself in a position of teacher and instructor of others. And if he leads others astray, that's even a worse sin than leading himself astray. If you want to take the words of the Annunciation and Mary saying, let it be done to me according to your word, to heart in this context, all it's telling you is that rape is wrong. Not that consent is needed for birth, it's needed for conception. The choice that is made for conception is the beginning of life, not whether you then allow it to go forward for 9 months. To suggest that Mary assenting to the Holy Spirit, conceiving her in a miraculous way as a virgin to give birth to the Messiah, is in some way a free pass to go and abort as many babies as you want, is one of the most dangerous and despicable things. And he's being praised by people who are ignorant. I'm sorry, Joe Rogan, you're ignorant if you can't follow up and say, what the hell are you talking about? This had to do with her conceiving a child, not giving birth to a child. Everyone who talks about abortion as being about reproductive rights, I'm sorry, by the time you have a baby growing in your belly, the reproduction has already happened.
Completely. Well, that is literally what stood out to me is, listen, Larry, we're Catholic. You're a better Catholic than me, but usually as Catholics, we're not.
Don't, God forbid you say such a thing, Cassie.
No, but we're not ones that typically can, quote scripture from memory. I leave that to my Protestant friends.
Yeah.
But even I know, I'm like, wait, the Annunciation, that was the angel saying this is going to happen to you.
Right.
Not that this is currently happening to you. So that's not a pro-choice message that you think it is, or pro-abortion message.
Yeah, Gabriel did not say, hey, you're pregnant. Now, do you want to go through with it or not? That's not what happened.
I guess I'm not surprised that Joe Rogan didn't quite pick up on that. I don't think he's in the pews on Sundays, but I think a lot of people in Texas should have.
Well, it's this kind of language and he does it. He went to Harvard. And by the way, can we just examine the idea of somebody going to Harvard and then becoming a middle school teacher and then running for Congress? It's all just a little bit too perfect, isn't it? And then 6 years after joining Congress, he runs for Senate and gets the nomination. He is made for television. What this does is allows people who want to align themselves with such policies, it gives them a get-out-of-jail-free card. They think that they've now been absolved by Pope Talarico to say it's okay for you to hold these positions. Stop listening to your pastor who says that it's a sin, and God forbid you vote based on that. This is the cynical way that Democrats approach people of faith in a state like Texas. We just need a guy who's going to be able to talk like this. And it might work. Over on the Republican side, it was a very, very tight race, tighter than anybody thought. A lot of people thought Ken Paxton would be the clear winner last night, but not by a 50% +1 margin, so there would be a runoff. Well, there is a runoff, but it turns out John Cornyn showed up big time. He ended up with 42% of the vote, with Ken Paxton getting 41% of the vote. Wesley Hunt way behind with only a 13.5% show up. So it's going to be a showdown between Cornyn and Paxton. Paxton only spent about $4 million in his race. Some estimates say that Cornyn spent $100 million as the incumbent. And he's got a lot of money, but boy, oh boy, it's going to be ugly. And if the Republican Party rips themselves apart, I mean, I never thought I would predict that it's possible a Democrat could win the Senate race in Texas, but it's possible. It is possible. If this runoff is as ugly as it could be.
If it's an ugly runoff, now you've got a Democrat candidate who, you said it earlier, and that was even more terrifying to me. They're not going to Beto him. They're going to Abigail Spanberger him.
Yeah.
He's just this moderate guy. He's a Christian like you and me.
He's so smart. He's reasonable. He's,
very scary.
He's not crazy like Jasmine Crockett. Yeah.
Right? Especially with Cornyn and Paxton going after each other. I do think this was something, and we talked about this last week when we had Matt Schlapp on, and I didn't realize this when he said Ken Paxton has won statewide more times than John Cornyn. Mm-hmm. But if you put it in that context, Texas voters know both of these candidates very well. And if you look at the results last night, they knew what they wanted to do. Of all of that money, of which I do think obviously having the spend advantage helped Cornyn to keep it as close as he did. But the Texas voters, and I hope they're smart on the Democrat side too, but they are very familiar with these candidates, which will make the runoff interesting too, because are they going to duke it out at the expense of voters already knowing what they're going to do? I mean, there's not much more that can be said or revealed here.
The danger here is the only political play Cornyn has is to really slime Ken Paxton and to say, he's had extramarital affairs and he's been they tried to impeach him in the House. Never mind that it was Democrats controlling the speakership. People don't know that about how Texas works. There's all these allegations of corruption. So Cornyn can't really run saying, I've been the best senator you've ever dreamed of here, Texas. Vote for me. Instead, he's going to have to drag Paxton down. And if he does enough damage, even if Paxton wins the primary, the damage may be done. And the question is, can the Republicans, unite behind their candidates, regardless of how ugly the runoff is? I don't know. We'll have to see. It's Texas, man. But it was a big night in the Lone Star State yesterday. It's 5:25.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37. Good morning. We're chugging along here on this Wednesday in your nation's capital. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas will join us. At 7:05, Jonathan Fahey, former ICE director. At 7:35, Congressman Rob Whitman of Virginia. And at 8:05, Maryland Senator Justin Brady. It's Larry O'Connor with Cassie Smedile. Good morning, Cassie.
Good morning, Larry. Good to be with you.
Right back at you. Well, let's turn our sights up to Gotham, shall we? As the Marxist mayor, Zohran Mamdani, continues to, be a Marxist. And as you know, he put out a statement after the military strikes against Iran, expressing great sympathy for, the Iranian government, I guess, the victims of the military strike, the ones who have wreaked havoc on the region and on their own people for decades now. There's a great viral moment of a expatriate Persian woman with that woman with the riotous head of hair, that is, her name, it's lost on me at the moment, but she does a lot of media, and she talks about how she was tortured. The Ayatollah actually sent an assassin here to America to try to kill her because she was speaking out against what happens in Iran. And she reacted in real time to Major Garrett reading a quote from Zohran Mamdani, and it's beautiful to watch that he's never condemned and regretted the loss of life of Iranian citizens at the hands of the government, but he's expressing very real concern over the reaction of the military strikes and about how it's going to affect people. It was quite something.
Just absolutely amazing. The same vibes as America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani after 9/11. He and Mamdani right there. I mean, it's
exactly
just wild how far New York has strayed in 20 years.
Well, and so now listen to this. yesterday he was asked at a press conference about whether and again, why does the mayor of New York have to have a foreign policy anyway? It's just so funny that he even thought he needed to wait. Fix the freaking potholes and get the snow off the streets. All right?
Yes.
But he was asked if the Iranian people are better off without the Ayatollah. And here was his non-answer. Cut 7.
And off-topic questions as well. Jason, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, do you think Iran is better off without the Ayatollah?
I've said before that the Iranian government has engaged in systematic repression of its own people, even killing thousands of Iranians who were seeking to express the most basic forms of dissent earlier this year. It is a brutal government. And I've also said that while I may be a young mayor, I am old enough to remember the devastating consequences of our country pursuing a war with the intent of regime change in that very same region not that many years ago.
Okay, fine. So the question was, are the people of Iran better off with the Ayatollah? And he did not say anything. What he said was, and this is being questioned, he said, as I've said before, the Iranian government has engaged in systematic repression of its own people, even killing that, which, by the way, if that's a fact that he said it before, that's in question right now because no one can find a record of him saying that before. But fine, you're saying it now. The question wasn't whether it was a brutal regime. The question was, are the people of Iran better off without the Ayatollah and the head of that brutal regime? And he could not bring himself to say it because it's more important to spend his time to dump all over America and our past military incursions in the region.
Right. Couldn't risk giving his buddy, his BFF, President Trump. We know they talk. They told us they talk, but when it comes to these moments, couldn't risk giving him any credit or even just standing up for America. It's not in the talking points, so he can't say it.
I have to say, I feel like everyone has this knee-jerk sort of just reflex reaction that they have to say, things in Iraq were awful and we should never do that again. Which, again, I get it. Yes, we've had many elections since then, and many people have won the presidency condemning the actions in Iraq, like Barack Obama. I mean, this is not new. This goes back to the 2008 election when it was a big part of the election between John McCain and Barack Obama. Obama said Iraq was a mistake, and that was only 6 years after the incursion into Iraq. He won the presidency on that notion. Joe Biden, who voted for the incursion in Iraq, then won the presidency. Donald Trump also said it was a mistake. I mean, it's kind of a lazy talking point at this moment that anytime the U.S. utilizes its military for any kind of mission, you must immediately run to a microphone and say, Iraq was a big mistake and we can't let that happen again. We get it. And if anybody thinks that Donald Trump is eager to get into a protracted military incursion in the Middle East as a man who, defied his own party by running against the Iraq war in 2016 and in 2020 and 2024, I don't know what to say to you. It's like you're just starting to pay attention to this. But I'm just getting tired of it. It's like, all right, you're right. We all agree on that. The elections have already been had on that. It's sort of a closed matter. Can we now just address this issue on its own and whether this was a good military strike, a wise military strike, and a good policy for America?
Yes, you're right. It is a lazy talking point, but it reminds me of another question, which maybe is the more timely version of the question you're seeing some Democrats get asked this. You didn't seem to have any issue when Barack Obama dropped bombs on Libya. We didn't need to have a big debate about the War Powers Act. And you've probably heard the clips of Nancy Pelosi saying no issue. Hakeem Jeffries sidestepped it, I think, yesterday when he said...
we have that. We'll play that audio later
Okay,
today.
Great.
Yeah.
We'll get there. So it is interesting. You're right. It's lazy because they're like, well, let me recall the thing of 25 years ago, but not talk about a more current set of circumstances.
You know what it is? It reminds me, and it's funny, when we had the debate over the Iraq war back in 2002, 2003, Democrats, all they could talk about was Vietnam. It reminds me, it's like, and this is true of Tucker Carlson and other political commentators on the right who just make everything, every single military use of military force by the United States now about Iraq and Afghanistan and forever wars and quagmires, and we can't do that again. It's like the rut the Democrats were in, where they could not stop shooting everything through the lens of Vietnam. It's like, not everything is Vietnam and not everything is Iraq and Afghanistan, and let's just use our thinking caps and evaluate the facts in front of us right now. Yes. Mamdani also has another hindrance, which is he's actually sympathetic to these brutal regimes because, well, he's a Marxist, and anyone who can embrace Marxism without recognizing the brutality that ends up going along with it, there's something broken in your moral compass. It's 5:44. All right, we move from the broken moral compass of the mayor of New York to the non-existent moral compass of the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who will put on any sort of lizard skin to meet whatever occasion he needs to meet. Here he was. What a despicable remark this is. The day after the military strike in Iran. So this was, this would have been March 2nd, right? I believe. Wait, the military strike was, well, actually, this was 2 days after. Excuse me. This is 2 days. He said this on March 2nd. The strike was on the 28th. And, of course, there were initial reports that, according to the propagandists in the Iran Ministry of Communications, you know, the Baghdad Bobs, the Tehran Toms, let's call them, they said that Israel had bombed an all-girls elementary school, and which, of course, we learned after the fact was not true at all. It was what, in fact, they even admitted 2 days later that it was their own rocket that misfired and came back. But we knew that evening that it was their rocket that had misfired and come back and bombed the little girls' elementary school. 2 days later, here's Gavin Newsom at an event about homelessness. So, of course, he wanted to comment on Iran at a homelessness event. Here he is.
We have to reconcile why our bombs were used, or Israeli bombs were used, to kill children, young girls at a school, and what the imminent threat was. It hasn't been described.
Some would call that a blood libel. That, I mean, are there no circumstances, repercussions for such a thing? You'll still hear people will send that video out and repeat it and say, yeah, America's the great Satan.
I'm sure. And again, it's this default reaction of to blast America, to second guess America. Gavin Newsom, we know, has no special access to any intelligence or information, but he does have special access to the talking point of the day. And it's, how can we go in and make our own country sound as bad as possible? And that's the default mechanism.
By the way, he may have gotten all that information from NBC News, who continues to report on this story and never, very rarely, points out that it wasn't an American or Israeli bomb or rocket that was involved in the strike on this elementary school. And then last night at a book event, the Pod Save America betas were interviewing him to promote his book in Los Angeles. And he waded straight into every single anti-Semitic, anti-Israel trope you can imagine. And for everybody who wants to hear this and say, well, I heard things from Tucker Carlson. Yeah, you're right. Tucker Carlson is not going to be the nominee of his party to be president. This man is currently the governor of California and is the contender, the leading contender, to be the nominee for president. And listen to the garbage he spewed.
And a lot of Democrats have looked at the Netanyahu regime and felt like, you know what, we don't like the trajectory he's on. It's time to rethink the U.S. relationship with Israel, especially military support.
Well,
where do you stand?
Making that easy right now. Let's talk about that. But the issue of Bibi's interesting because he's got his own domestic issues. He's trying to stay out of jail. He's got an election coming up. He's potentially on the ropes. He's got folks, the hard line, that want to annex the West Bank. I mean, Freeman and others are talking about it appropriately. It's sort of an apartheid state. They couldn't even, I mean, we're talking about regime change. For 2 years, they haven't even been able to solve the Hamas question in Israel.
Hold on. Pause for a second. Again, this is what I really wish I were conducting the interview. Excuse me, expand on that. Solve the Hamas question? How would you like them to solve the Hamas question? How would you solve the Hamas question? Because their idea of solving the Hamas question is a pretty good one, I think. Kill Hamas. And it was your political party and your activists who were screaming that they're, involved in a genocide by trying to solve the Hamas question. Don't you love it how they hypocritically have it all ways to Sunday?
Always. It's like, hey, let me just come from the anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protest to now over here say you got to solve the Hamas question.
Right.
Let me be your nominee for president, Democrat Party.
Yes, and but wild. He then goes on to basically say that Trump is controlled by Israel. Listen.
So this is, I want to be careful here, but in so many ways, that influence in the context of the conversation of where Trump ultimately landed on this is pretty damn self-evident. And so Rubio may have been saying something else in the context of what he ultimately said in terms of being sort of pulled into some of these things. But I will say this, didn't surprise me in this context. I don't know if it was Napoleon or whoever said about a sword, the only thing you can't use a sword for is sitting on it. And when you bring 2 aircraft carriers out there and you assemble the kind of military force that Trump did over the last few weeks, it didn't surprise me ultimately that they moved that direction.
Do you think, looking down the road, that the United States should consider maybe, rethinking our military support for Israel?
It breaks my heart because the current leadership in Israel is walking us down that path, where I don't think you have a choice but that consideration.
There you go.
To say
vote wisely, America. Vote wisely, Democrats. It's pretty clear. This is not Harry Truman's Democratic Party, that's for sure. Heck, it's not even Barack Obama's Democratic. Well, okay, maybe it is Barack Obama's Democratic Party.
Not Bill Clinton's.
That's for sure. No, the only difference with the Democrats now in charge of the party is that they are saying out loud what Barack Obama would have loved to have said at the time, but he certainly walked them down the path toward where they are right now. It's 5:54.